And the last Christmassy movie, or, ooh, no. Ah, cheer. Hello everybody, my name is Kelsey and we're about to get very, very nerdy with some Christmassy winter recommendations. So I have my homemade peppermint mocha, and by homemade I mean from a K-cup, and I have some books that I want to share with you for this time of year. I did one kind of similar to this last year, and I don't think I've repeated anything, so I feel pretty good. If I do, there's only one possibility, and it will have been the first one. So I'll link that down below if you want to see what I thought last year, but I just grabbed a few books that are Christmassy yet also wintry, so that if you do not celebrate Christmas, that's okay. Only the first, I think, the first three books are technically Christmas books. The others are just kind of for this time of the year. So, grab a cup of something more, snuggle down, and let's go through some books that you should read this time of year. Oh, that's good. The first book that I want to show you is one that I read last year at this time, and it's definitely dedicated to the Christmas season, and I'm sure many people have talked about it on BookTube, and that is The Afterlife of Holly Chase by Cynthia Hand. This takes the Scrooge story, the story of A Christmas Carol, and kind of turns it on its head, makes it a little more modernized, and just kind of like throws in a lot of like fantastical and maybe not quite sci-fi aspects, but definitely fantastical aspects. This reads like a contemporary with like that little bit of like fantasy in it just because of some of the situations that are happening. Basically, the entire book is not really logical. So if you like that retelling of maybe your classic Christmas story, this is the book for you. The next book is for those of us who love our retellings, but also love Hallmark movies at Christmas, and that is Pride and Prejudice and Mistletoe by Melissa de la Cruz. This reads just like a Hallmark movie, which is no surprise since it was actually turned into a Hallmark movie. Now, this is the story of Pride and Prejudice, obviously, where they switch genders, so Darcy is a female and the Elizabeth character is a male. I read this one last year as well. I loved it. I need to watch the Hallmark movie version because I haven't seen it yet, and y'all know I love a good cheesy romance, so Hallmark movies and I are like biffles, so I really need to watch this adaptation. The next book is our last Christmassy book, and it also falls under that good old Christmas, kind of rom-com-y kind of situation, and that is Christmas in Paris. So this follows a girl named Isabel who is in Paris. She's on her balcony. She's like in the height of luxury, but the problem is that week or two that she was supposed to be in Paris was supposed to be her honeymoon, but a week before the wedding with her fiance Neil, she decides to call it off. And Neil suggests that, she go and take this, time that they were supposed to be on their honeymoon just to clear her head, hoping that she'll come back. While she is in Paris, she accidentally locks herself on the balcony of her suite. Thank goodness the suite next to her is also being rented by a man named Alec, who is also kind of like getting over a breakup situation. So he's able to help her out, and the two kind of become friends and hang out a little bit. There is a whole lot with a fortune teller as well, where Isabel gets her fortune told and she thinks that, oh my goodness, I'm going to get all of these things, and obviously, what she thinks and what ends up happening are two very different things. So you do have that aspect of it, but I loved this. This one I read a couple years ago, and it was so good. Like, I kind of want to reread it just because it was like a good, hearty romance that just like warms your heart. And it's set in Paris around Christmas. I mean, who's complaining? Because not me. The next few that I have to go with are all kind of wintry books, but they are not dedicated to Christmas. So if you, like I said, don't celebrate Christmas, don't worry, I still got you covered. And the first one is To All the Boys I Loved Before by Jenny Han. This book specifically, but the entire series also works well. This is a really quick, fast romance novel. YA romance. I'm sure many of you have heard about it. It follows our lovely main character, Laura Jean, who every single time she falls for a boy writes them a letter, but doesn't send them and puts them all in a box. However, somehow these letters have gotten out, and it just kind of starts this whirlwind crazy situation for her. Now there is an adaptation of this on Netflix, which I'm sure many of you have already watched, which I love, and they're making the second one, which is great, so props to that. But if you just want like a fun contemporary romance, this is the one to go to, especially because it starts, I believe, near the beginning of the school year and ends in a Christmas winter kind of holiday. So definitely good for this time of year where it leads up to a winter, but you know, it's just fun and cute and you can totally lose yourself in it. And I read this within like 2 or 3 days. The chapters are like 2 or 3 pages long. There are like 80 chapters in this book. And also, at least in my copy of this book, we've got little Christmas cookie recipes because Laura Jean loves to bake. So you can bake while you read. I mean, I see nothing wrong with this situation. But it does kind of take place partly in this time of year, and it is super quick that you can just like completely devour yourself to when you have the time off. The next book takes place more of a kind of New Year's rather than a Christmas, but it does take place in winter, which is why I wanted to include it here, and that is The Chaos of Standing Still by Jessica Brody. Like I said, this one takes place around New Year's, where we follow our main character, whose name I forgot, Rin. This follows our main character, Rin, who is stuck in an airport in Denver in the snow, hoping to get to wherever she needs to go for New Year's, but ends up accidentally having to spend New Year's in the airport. Now, she is grieving because her best friend has been dead for, I believe, about a year, and she has a text message on her phone from the best friend that she has never read and refuses to read. She meets a boy named Xander who kind of like makes her break out of that comfort zone a little bit because they accidentally switch phones, and that's how they, you know, meet. So it's a good book that deals with loss, deals with grief, that kind of situation, and takes place in a winter setting, as you can tell from all the beautiful snowflakes on this cover. Like, this cover just screams winter to me. This is one that you can read after the holidays or whenever you want, but it's definitely a winter read in my opinion. The next one is one that I have just recently finished, and I wasn't thinking about putting it on this list until I was reading it, and I felt like it fit. And that is Lily and Duncan by Donna Gephardt. Now, this is a middle grade, but it's higher middle grade, as this takes place in 8th grade between two friends, Lily and Duncan, who meet on around the first day of school. Lily is transgender, but isn't out to anybody except for her family, and Duncan is bipolar and is going through a lot of stuff of being in a new town and actually being picked up by the popular kids. And it is about both of their situations just kind of becoming friends, in a sense. There's a lot of struggle between the two of them, but this takes place just like To All the Boys I Loved Before, where it starts at the beginning of the school year and ends around the holidays. Now, this one, unlike To All the Boys I Loved Before, does not have to do anything with the holidays. The only mention of the holidays is that it ends during a holiday dance, which would have taken place right before the kids got out for winter break. So this is a good one, I think, for reading at this time of year when we are getting into the holidays, and it is good for that, but it, like I said, has nothing to do with the holidays, but I think it's good to read at this time of year. And I thought that I would include a middle grade since I have been reading quite a lot of middle grade recently. And the last three that I have for you are poetry, graphic novel, smaller books. And those are the people who have lots of family in town and want to spend time with them, but also do want to be able to escape. And these are really short stories that you can escape really quickly into, as well as not taking up too much time away from family. The first one that I have for you here is Voices, The Final Hours of Joan of Arc by David Elliott. This is a kind of poetry collection telling the story of Joan of Arc from a million different perspectives. I read it earlier this year and I absolutely loved it. It's definitely an interesting take because there are bits and pieces of the actual trials of Joan of Arc in this book. So you get real, actual historical evidence for her, as well as David Elliott's interpretation of what Joan of Arc would have been thinking at this time, as well as other things that, like non-human things, like the sword that she carried, a cloak that she wore, a tree that she sat under. Like, it's really interesting how he does that, but I love this, and like I said, it's super short, and it is in that poetic kind of format, lyrical format, so I definitely enjoyed this. If you like history and you want something more historical fiction and short, this is definitely the book for you. The next small graphic novel is for those who love the fantasy, and I am going to recommend Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. I read this, I believe it was sometime last year, and this is just a really fun graphic novel. The art style is absolutely, I love it so much. This follows the story of Nimona, who is a shape-shifting something, we're not quite sure, and she wants to be the sidekick for, I believe his name is Lord Ballister Blackheart, and he's supposed to be the evil villain as his nemesis, which is this guy whose name I can never remember, Sir Ambrosius Goldenloin. So, interesting names we've got here, but this toys with, you know, who the lines of good and evil, so like, is the bad guy actually bad and is the good guy actually good? So it's really interesting, and I actually listened to the audiobook of this on Scribd, so if you have Scribd, I would highly suggest listening to it while you read along with it because it's so entertaining. But this is definitely a good, it's a chunky-ish graphic novel, but it's really easy to get through, and it's just fun. I enjoy it. I will recommend this like all day long. And the last book is another graphic novel, like I said, and this is for those who just want all of the good feels. Like you want a wholesome story that will break you. So I suggest Bloom. Now this is a real chunk of a graphic novel. However, there is not a lot of dialogue in here, but the art style in here is again really, really pretty. I adore this. I read this one only a couple of months ago, but it tells the story of these two boys during the summer at a bake shop. Like it's so pure and beautiful, and I love their story, and it's great. This reminds me a lot along the lines of Heartstoppers, so if you enjoyed Heartstoppers, I definitely think that you enjoyed this. I think I like this because it is a good, wholesome story. Like, I loved it. You can sit down and do this in one sitting, so you don't have to be away from your family for too long, but if you do need a break, let's be honest, we all need breaks sometimes. This is definitely something that you can do, so it's definitely something that, like, will warm your heart. But everything isn't, like, wrapped up in a neat little bow. Like, it is in a sense, but it's also not. So, like, I don't, if that makes any sense. But I definitely enjoyed this, and if you want the happy feels, this is the book for you. Oh, there's 9 books. I don't know how I'm going to hold this up. So those are the 9 books that I suggest you read at this time of the year, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. If you've read any of these, please let me know down below. I'd love to know your thoughts on them. I need to put this down. This is heavy. Let me know what a book that you like to read at this time of year. If you have a good Christmas or winter book read that you love, please let me know. I would love to know that. I want to broaden my horizon. I'm very, like, Christmas is my favorite holiday, so this time of year is just, like, perfection for me. So, like, I'm ready. I was ready, like, 3 weeks ago. So now that it's officially December, I can get away with being this excited. But with that being said, I think that's all I've got for you guys. Make sure you give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to be part of this awesome growing family, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!